for some spoilers about the new Star Wars movies that will come in December.
Maybe I know, maybe I don't. Let's see. Okay, let's talk about Star Wars. Everybody has seen Star Wars? Is anybody who never saw Star Wars? Okay, get out of the room, go home, do your homework, and then come back. Jesus Christ, he's 40 years old. Nah, it's a joke. Okay, about me, my name is Sergi, I come from Barcelona. I've been under GDE, as we were discussing yesterday. It means that from time to time I work for Google for free. I'm a developer at Chipset Spain, we're looking for people, all the stuff. If you want to come to the sunny Barcelona, just blah, 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 you know, whatever. This is my Twitter, just follow me. Today I got my 1,000 followers. Woo. So now I'm an influencer officially. Okay, today we're going to talk about Dialogflow. I have a superpower. Every time I make a presentation, the software changes the same day. I talked today about Flutter. They changed things about Flutter yesterday. This is the second time I do this presentation, and the first time they changed the name of the product 24 hours before I made the presentation. Okay, so you will see me using both names because I'm still getting used to it. The old name was API.ai, that it's difficult to say, and now it's called Dialogflow. It's more in the line of TensorFlow and whatever flow in naming. But the only change is the name. So what do we want to do today? What will I explain you to do? The idea is that we will be able to make an application that will, for example, work in a Google Home, and we will be able to ask things about Star Wars characters to this application. Okay, this is the simple idea. How it works, what exactly Dialogflow does? Let's imagine this flow, okay? We have the user on the left, and this user says something, or writes something. You have both ways. This input could be in the top by keyboard or by microphone. In case of being by microphone, there's some software that translates this voice into text. This is usually done in the phone or in a Google Home or any other device. Or, for example, if you are using, I don't know, Telegram, Facebook, or the Google Assistant by keyboard, it's directly into text. This text is sent to Dialogflow. We still have the name here. And what Dialogflow does is it analyzes this text and it tries to translate it into an order that the computer can understand. So basically, it tells us what the user wants to do. For example, if I say, I want a pizza, the final translation is that the user wants to buy a pizza. But I can also say, I'm hungry, I want a pizza, or I want to order a pizza. There are many ways of saying things. Also, for example, I can say, I want a pizza with these toppings. So what Dialogflow will do is tell me, okay, the order is buy a pizza, or order a pizza, and the parameter toppings is, I don't know, salami, or cheese, or whatever. So we will set up what is called an agent, able to understand some instructions and translate them into a command and a parameters. Okay, this is a simple way. We will get back to this slide later, but let's finish here. Okay. Then, based on this intent, on this order, the Dialogflow will give me an answer, and this answer will be sent to the client and reproduced by audio or by text in the screen, depending on the type of client. Is clear what Dialogflow does? Okay. So, making this a small part, no? The step one. For example, if the user says, how tall is Darth Vader? Dialogflow will say, hey, the user wants to know the height of a character called Darth Vader. And the answer will be, hey, Darth Vader is 202 centimeters tall. And the client will receive. It's the proper number. I made so many tests that I know some heights of characters by memory now. But before doing anything, let's introduce some concepts, some ideas that we will use on Dialogflow. First one, the agent, I already mentioned. A Dialogflow agent is just a project, an application. If you want to do, let's think that, for example, I do this Star Wars thing and I do another one for, I don't know, Game of Thrones, there will be two different agents. Okay, this is an easy one. we have the intent. The intent, I already told you that Dialogflow translates from text, from a conversation entry, to an instruction. This is what the intent does. It's a mapping between these two things. So at the end, what Dialogflow will give us is the intention of the user. And this is called an intent. Here we have some examples of intent. For example, if the user says hello, we can grab it in an intent called salute. If the user says, I want to know how tall Darth Vader is, for example, the intent could be get Darth Vader height. But we have more cases for the same phrase. I want to say, I want to talk about Darth Vader. Then the intent is set character, so saying to the computer, okay, from now on, we will talk about Darth Vader. And the parameter is that the character is Darth Vader. Next example, I want to know how tall is Darth Vader. In this case, the intent is, I want to know, get height. I want to know the height of a character. Which one? Darth Vader. And this is the composed example. I can say first, I want to talk about Darth Vader. Okay, I'm setting a character, and the character is Darth Vader. And then I say, how tall is he? Okay, I want to know the height of the character. Which character? Darth Vader, because it's the one we are talking about. This is what is called the context of the conversation. We'll talk more about this later. But you get the idea of the intent, okay? It's just some phrases that, when they are said, translate into an instruction. Let's create an intent. I'm going to do some live demo. It's risky, but I'm brave. Now it's when the Wi-Fi fails or whatever. Okay. Here I have an agent. It's called Playground. It's only in English. Now we can create, they introduced this 1 month ago, more or less. We can make multi-language agents, but there is no big difference between making a multi-language agent and making separate agents, because you have to understand that in all this, let's say, artificial intelligence stuff related to language, all the work that you did with one language means nothing in another language. So everything has to be worked from the scratch, okay? And in this case, we have 3 intents. The 2 first, the default fallback intent and the default welcome intent, they are created when you create a new agent. You just say create new agent and this appears. And they basically are, the default fallback intent is the one that will be used to answer when Dialogflow is not able to understand what's going on. Okay, it contains a bunch of phrases. Oh, I don't know what you're saying. Oh, I don't understand. Can you repeat? Blah, blah, blah. And the default, it's very small. The default welcome intent, it's the first message that is sent when the user accesses to the application. Okay, I think the default says, hi, hello, how are you, blah, 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 blah. And we created one called Vader height. This is a very simple one. It means that whenever the user says one of these phrases, measurement of Vader, what's the height of Darth Vader, how tall is Darth Vader, okay, we will receive one of these 4 answers. Vader is 200 centimeters tall, he measures 202, he's tall and scary. No, sorry, 3. So basically, we introduce a bunch of phrases and a bunch of answers. Every time we save the changes, there is a training process. So it has the ability to not only understand these phrases, but similar ones. In fact, in the second and the third, I just write down the question mark, but it's not needed at all. Because before analyzing, he will strip all the symbols. Of course, writing the right phrases from the beginning, it's almost impossible. Okay, that's why, I'll show you later, we have the ability to take all the phrases that he didn't understood and train him to say, okay, this one means this one means this means nothing, blah, 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 blah. But when you have more or less around 10, 12 phrases, it starts to be able to find all the combinations. Okay, so let's try it. Here in the right in the right side, you have a paint to test it. For example, he says, the user says how tall is Darth Vader. The default response is he measures 202 centimeters. The intent is Vader height. Okay, the action is not available. When we create an intent, we have both things, the intent and the action. The idea is that one intent generates one action, but being two separate fields allows me to create different intents for the same action. Because in some cases, it's too difficult to put everything in a single intent. Because we can say, okay, I can have one intent for when I know the name of the character, another one when I don't know the name of the character, but both will generate the same action. In this case, the action field is empty, so it says not available. Okay, if I say the same question again, it gives me the same answer. Ooh. I don't know. Oh. Okay, it gets all the answers randomly. From all the set of answers, he goes one of them random. Okay, but this is how you create an intent, simple one. But this is not really useful. If we have to create one intent per character, I'm using the Star Wars API that is publicly available, and there are like 200 characters, so I'm not going to create 200 intents because this is crazy. But what happens if we want more characters? Then we enter the entities. An entity is just like a variable that can have several values. Okay? In this case, for example, the entity will be the character. Let me show you how to create. I have the entity already created, character. And in this case, I have an entry of values, okay, and synonyms of the value. For example, if I want to say Luke Skywalker, I can say Luke Skywalker or Luke. If I want to say, I don't know, Owen Lars, I can say Owen Lars, Owen. You see that I wrote, for example, Akbar. It's not because this is the right way, it's just that I took all the names, copied the first, duplicated the last, and the ones with a single name, there are 3 times. Okay. In the top, we can select if we want synonyms or not. If we don't want synonyms, the right column will disappear, so saying there is only one way to tell this. And the automated expansion means that if, for example, there is a user that says, I want to know how tall Harry Potter is, it won't work. So it will be in the list of available phrases to train, and I will say, oh, this user is talking about this intent, so train on it. If I do this, it will add Harry Potter to the list of entities. So be careful with this. Okay? If you have a lot of entities, like in this case, you can work in raw mode, and you can import a CSV or JSON. Okay? That it's much more convenient. There is one thing missing. I think it's missing. I mean, I work with other similar systems, and this is missing for me. That it's the ability to call an API to use this list. If you have 1,000 products, and you want the users to be able to select a product by voice, you have to add 1,000 products. Okay? It has an API that allows us to manipulate all these entities via API, but in this case, it will suppose, for example, that every night you have to upload the name of the products, not the other way, that it will come to you to ask, hey, is this a product or not? It's not available. Okay, so we have this entity. Let's create another intent. First, let's delete this one, otherwise they will clash. We create a new intent called how tall is Darth Vader. Look, at the moment I present it recognizes Darth Vader as an entity. So it's saying, hey, this phrase has one parameter that it's called character. It's based on the entity character, and the result value in this case is Darth Vader. Okay? This is talking about this phrase. If I say, see, it's resolving to a character. Then down, it's adding all the list of entities that it has detected that some of the phrases need. So now what happens? I have two phrases, two examples with the name of the character. But for example, I can say, see? In this case, he didn't detect anything. It says that there is no entity here that you can use. So, what will happen in this case? If the user says, how tall is Darth Vader? Dialogflow will detect that there is an entity called character with the value Darth Vader. If we say, how tall is he? There will be no entity detected.
I have a question. Can you have two parameters, like how old is Darth Vader?
Yes. For example, I can do something like this. Detected two of them. But one is called character one, the other one is called character. There are also other type of parameters. For example, if I say, I'm going out of the example, but to show you. Okay, see, tomorrow is called sysdate. These are system entities. He's able to understand, there are a bunch of them. Let me show you. Date, period, units, countries, airport. This is new. Wow. Volume, cities, daytime. The good thing is that when the user says tomorrow, the parameter that you will receive at the end is the exact date. Okay? And if, for example, it says in the morning, it detects this as a time range, and you will receive from 9 to 12. Okay? So it's quite, you can even say past tomorrow, etc., etc. I did test in English and in Spanish. And for example, in Spanish, a lot of times we use to say one, we use the word un or una, depending on the gender. The problem is that it's also to say, if I want to say, our case was based on making interviews. If you want to say come to an interview, in Spanish is the same as saying come to one interview. And it was all the time detecting this one as the time. Okay, it was a problem. It's the quality of the detection and the intelligence, as I told, is very different in every language. Okay. Let me delete this one. Remove this. Okay, let's save this one. It's wrong, I don't care. It says intent saved. Hello? And it doesn't say anything else. Ooh. It's supposed to say started training. Usually you need a bit more of intents to do this, but it says starting training, and then it says end training. Do not test it until it's finished training, because it won't work. But let's try again. I say, oh, sorry, it's not training because there are no responses. Two stupid responses. And then save it. Hello. No training. Okay. I say, how tall is Darth Vader? It says very tall. He detected the intent character height, and the parameter character is Darth Vader. But I can say, how tall is Luke? It says character height. The character is Luke Skywalker. Why I say Luke and it says Luke Skywalker? Because in the entity it says that Luke is a synonym of Luke Skywalker. And it will always give me the main term, not the synonym. When I will show you later how to hook up a webhook. When you have a webhook with an API, you receive both parameters, the original and the entity value. Okay, it's fine, but what happens if I say, how tall is he? It says tall, but there is no character. So in order to give an answer, the name of the character is mandatory. I cannot receive a question that says, how tall is he? Who is he? I don't know, we don't have context, we never set the character. So what we can do is say that one of the parameters is required. And then we can define prompts. For example, who are you talking about? Close, save. Agent training started. And completed. Okay, now I say, how tall is Vader? Very tall. But now I say, how tall is he? And a lot of things are happening. First of all, it asks me, who are you talking about? Then we have some colored boxes appearing. These are called contexts, we'll talk about later. And the intent is the same. So now I just need to say, for example, look, and it finished, then it's complete the intent. It says very tall, it says the intent was character hey, and this is the parameter. So we can play with the parameters and the filling prompts in order to create a conversation. For example, the case of the pizza, I can say, I want a pizza. Okay, what size? Large, medium, small? Oh, small. Oh, what's the topping that you prefer? Oh, cheese or pineapple or something. If I have more than one parameter, it will ask one by one until all the required parameters are prompted with valid values. Okay? So you see how we start creating a conversation. In this case, it's just a conversation to fulfill everything that we need to answer. But this is the beginning of a conversation. Let's talk about the context. What is the context? The context is the information in a conversation. It's always a good idea to think, what will do you as a human? If I say to any of you, hey, let's talk about Vader. Hey, what do you want to know about Darth Vader? How tall is he? Oh, he's 202 centimeters tall. See, there is in the second question, how tall is he, there is a context. And the context of the conversation is that the character we are talking about is Darth Vader. Of course, if I say, hey, let's talk about Darth Vader. Oh, what do you want to know about Darth Vader? With pineapple. It makes no sense. Because we are in different contexts, we are in different conversations. So the context is very important. Every intent can have input and output context. When we say this intent has an output context, what we are creating are like boxes. Each content will be a box that we will give to the next intent. When we say that an intent has an input context, what we are doing is this intent can only happen if this context is available. For example, let's say that I made an entry that's called set character, and I say, hey, I want to talk about Darth Vader. And I say my output context is character down, or current character, or something like this. And I create another intent that only has the question, how tall is he? The second intent will need the first one to work, because I don't have the name of the character. So we just need to say, okay, the input context is character noun. So Dialogflow will first analyze your phrase, see which which intent adjust to that phrase, and which of them have any of the input context that we have as context right now, because we can have several contexts. I know it's complicated. Let me show you an example. Okay, just to speed up, what I will do is use the already created one. Okay, so for example, we have this set subject. Here I have different phrases. Skywalker, I want to know things about the Skywalker, about Luke Skywalker, tell me about the Luke Skywalker, blah, 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 blah. Okay? In this case, I have no responses because this is connected to a webhook. So there is an API who will give me the answer. But as you see, at the moment that I say the name of the character, the output context is out. You see this small clip called out. And what the 5 means? It means that if I do not use any of the variables of this context will live for 5 phrases. Okay? It's like, for example, if I say to you, oh, let's talk about Darth Vader. Okay, but you want to know about Darth Vader. How was your day today? You start talking about any other topics, and 20 phrases later you say, how tall is he? How tall is who? What are we talking about? This is the context. You can put whatever number you want. You can put a 0. If you put a 0, what you do is say that this is the end of the conversation. Finished. So you're destroying the context. In some cases, you want that after one specific intent, the context is destroyed. For example, imagine that you have an intent that it's, I don't want to talk about Darth Vader anymore. So you destroy the context. Because if you say, I don't want to talk about Vader anymore, you don't want to be able to say later, how tall is he? And then answer about Darth Vader. In this case, I'm setting up my output context. And I, for example, can say as subject height. And it's not like this in this case, but because I'm supporting both when you say the name of the character and when you don't say it. But if I separate this intent in 2, and one of them is when you don't say the name of the character, I will say, okay, this case, the input context is the context out. So it will only execute after the set subject context. It will only execute if I have a character in the context. Is this context thing clear? My advice is play with it. Okay. Also, if you start playing with things, it will happen to you. You will start saving and testing, saving and testing, saving and testing. And the key of trainings will be there working. So always give a bit of time because you try something and it's not work or it's doing something weird. Also, this one will work. Let's return to the playground. Hello. Okay. If I say that the output context is out, for example, I save, it trains, all the stuff. Okay. Okay. See, it's telling me that now it detected the intent, and now I have a context called out. Now, out is the context of the conversation, and maybe not the best name, but okay. You remember when I said how tall is he, and he asked me, who are you talking about? There were a lot of boxes, because in order to fulfill, it creates a lot of temporary context with IDs and all the stuff. Contexts are very useful also when you do what is called disambiguation. For example, let's say that I say, let's talk about the Skywalker. There are 3 Skywalker characters in Star Wars. Luke Skywalker, Anakin, and another one that I have no idea who is. I think it's the mother of Anakin. Okay. But if you say, let's talk about a Skywalker, the expected answer is, do you mean Luke or Anakin, or the other one? In this case, you can prepare a special context that is only used for disambiguation, and once the disambiguation is clear, remove the context. Okay, so it will be a void to, because otherwise, to answer a question like this, that only telling a name, you will have probably a parameter that is just the name, but then it will clash with this case. See, for example, set subject. See, I have one entry that is only the name of the character. If I have another one for disambiguation, that it only contains only the name of the character as a parameter, it could have a clash and give you absolutely random results. But via context, we can select, no, this is the one to answer, this is the one to answer. Because if my context out is disambiguation, for example, this one has not the context in disambiguation, so it will never answer this in that moment. Is this clear? Okay, it's a moment to add intelligence. As I said, I'm not going to create an intent per character. It's not worth. I mean, I don't need Dialogflow to do this. It's just a switch. Okay. In this case, what we do is create a webhook. Remember the previous example? Oh, let's first go back to the original one. This is the case that we're going to explain now. We have detected the intent. But in this case, Dialogflow says, I don't know how to answer the intent. I have a webhook who is able to do it. So it asks to our webhook, who asks databases, external API, our system intelligence, whatever, and then builds the answer, and then returns the answer to Dialogflow. More specifically in this case. Epa. The user says, let's talk about Darth Vader. And Dialogflow says, okay, thanks to my intelligence, I'm able to detect that the user wants to set Vader as a character. Then it sends a message to the webhook saying, hey, the action is select character, and the character is Vader, or Darth Vader, depending how it's set up. It could, if it's in the entity, it will resolve. If you just send the name, just send the name. Also, if we made the request in, for example, Google Home or Google Assistant, it will also include the original request of the client. In our webhook, we will analyze the intent, the parameters. Maybe we will analyze the original request of the client if we need. And then we will prepare a response for both of them, Dialogflow and the assistant. The assistant is not mandatory. If we don't want anything special, we can let Dialogflow handle the answer. But if we include the answer, we can include rich context. Depending on the client, for example, in the case of Google Home, we can use, I completely forgot the name, but there is a XML standard for voices that allows you to use, say, tell this in this pitch, tell this in this speed, play this MP3, whatever. Or if instead of Google Home is the assistant in the screen, you can say, hey, give these cars as an options, or make this, select this, or propose this link. Of course, I will show you now, there are a lot of different clients, there's something like 16 or 15. Each one sends a different original request. Dialogflow, sorry. Dialogflow only documents the assistant and Google Home, which is part of assistant. For the other ones, you have to go to the original reseller to find the information. I tried with the Twitter and the Telegram. They're quite easy. For example, in the case of Telegram, the only thing that you need is take the original conversation ID from the request and put it in the response to maintaining the same conversation. Okay. Example. I created two examples. I put both of them in GitHub. One of them is in Node, the other one is in Java. Okay? I originally made it in Java because I'm a Java developer, but then I realized that Java is not the best case for everybody. I mean, if the code is good, it has several layers, files, and if you don't work in Java, it's a bit pain in the ass. So I made this example in Node. If you want to check any of them, it's okay. I don't know if the Java one is already is working right now because I'm not maintaining it anymore. But let's see the Node one. How to make it work. My advice: use ngrok and Postman. Everybody knows what Postman is. Yeah. Fancy code for people who doesn't like to write. Do you know what ngrok is? That will be the best thing that you will learn in this talk, ngrok. What happens? Once you have your webhook, you have to tell to Dialogflow, have to come here, and tell to Dialogflow, no, sorry, no. Here in fulfillment, this is the URL of my endpoint. but it's in my machine. So every time you want to try, you have to upload somewhere, deploy, try, it fails, you cannot debug, you don't have a log. ngrok is a wonderful tool that you just download and execute and do something like this. Can you read that? No. Now this URL, http://f4c4 blah blah blah, it's public in the internet and it's the 8080 port of my machine. So it's a very quick tool for do channeling. If you have to work with webhooks for Dialogflow or whatever, this will save your life. It's free. It has a lot of parameters to set up headers, subdomains, passwords, blah blah blah. I'm exposing my machine to the world. I don't care. But the good thing is that Control-C and it stops. Okay? And the good thing is that it gives you a web interface that allows you to see all the requests, all the responses, and repeat them. This is really, really good for debugging because you get sick of writing to an assistant. I can tell you, you get sick of writing, how tall is Darth Vader? Come on. Okay? This is just one tool. Now, I'm going to take the okay. I'm going to just run the server. It's called npm run start def. It's working. Woo. Okay, let's go back here. Sorry. I come here. I copy the HTTPS URL. If you want to have your ngrok URLs stable and be always the same, you have to pay. Here, and I say that my end is here. Oh, you can write your webhook in anything you want, but you can. Do you see anything at all?
You scroll down.
No. In my screen is visible. Don't you see numbers or anything? Wow. I can swear you, there is a lot of things below docs. But it's disabled, maybe it's not visible. You can say inline editor and write the code here in Dialogflow, but it's not really true. What it's doing, it's connecting to Google Cloud Functions. Okay? You can do the same just using Google Cloud Functions and using it as a hook. The good thing of using Google Cloud Functions is that the communication between Cloud Functions and Dialogflow is free. But to other things, it's not free. In that case, we are not using it. We're using our webhook. But they made the save button. You see the save button, right? I mean, there is a lot of things here. Funny. Okay, it's done. Now, in our entities, sorry. In our intents, for example, in set subject, there are no answers, but we check the use webhook for fulfillment. That basically means the answer will be provided by the webhook. You can also use the webhook for slot filling. What it means that whenever it says, for example, you say, how tall is he? And the subject is not set, it will ask you to say, hey, give me the question I need to use to fulfill this field. Okay? It becomes everything a bit messy because the problem is that the request is always the same, so you have to do a lot of pieces in your API. Okay, let's see it. Okay, let's talk about Vader. What do you want to know about Darth Vader? Darth Vader was born in Tatooine. See? What is going on? Every time I make a question, it resolves to an intent, so it knows, in this case, it knows, hey, I want to know where this character was born. If we go to here, to ngrok, and we review what happened, See, the last request, he sent all this thing to the server. For example, the ID of the request, the timestamp, the language, the result that, it's not the result in terms of what's the result of the conversation. It's, I resolved this intent. I resolved that the phrase means an intent. Resolve query, where was he born, action, subject, get planet, action incomplete, parameters, subject evaded, blah, 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 blah. Some metadata, fulfillment, status, session ID. And the answer from the backend was this. Speech, display text, source, context out. End of it. And you will always receive this JSON, always. Maybe bigger, maybe smaller, but always the same JSON. Final thing, let's really quick review the code of the backend, okay? Let's do it in a fast way that even if you don't know JavaScript, understand what's going on. ¿Qué estáis haciendo? Okay. If you go to the hello. It's not open. Okay. If you go to the repository, you will find several files. The swbot.zip, it's the whole agent exported. You can take an agent, export it, and then import it. So if you want to reproduce, take the zip, import into Dialogflow for a new agent, and end of it. It will contain the entities, the intents, everything. Basically, inside of this, there is only JSONs with all the descriptions. We have just 3 JavaScript files. In this case, we have index, that is just the typical, HTTP server that listens to a port, blah, 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 blah. Nothing really related to Dialogflow here. All the work is done here in actions. What do? We receive a request on the top. We separate the request into parts, original request and result. We say, okay, the requested character is result.parameters.subject. Just path in the JSON. The origin is process original request. This what it does is it says, okay, if it comes from Telegram, I will take this data from the original request. If it comes from API, from Google Home, I will take this. Otherwise, I will take nothing. And when answering, it says, okay, there is information from Telegram, then I prepare the answer for Telegram. There is information for here, then I prepare. For the moment, ignore. And the action that is result action. Okay, and we say, if the requested character is null, the answer is tell me the name of the character. By how the intents are made, this is not possible. We cannot arrive here without the character, but just in case. Otherwise, hey, Star Wars API, find this character. What happens is that we can receive more than one character. So we say, if there are no characters, or the characters is length, I don't know whoever is. If there is more than one, what we do is just prepare the typical, do you mean this, or this? And send this answer. And in the case that we have only one character, for example, Darth Vader, it says, okay, the answer is get the answer for this character and this action. Okay? All these steps are just to arrive to the happy place where the question is clear, the character is clear. And this is just a switch. This is created here. It says, okay, if the action was set the subject, the answers are, what do you want to know about this character? What information, blah, blah, blah. If I want to know the height, these are the height. If I want to know the color of the hair, the color of the hair. Oh, there are more. The home wall, the movies, blah, 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 blah. And at the end, I receive the default is, I just receive all the phrases for this action and take one randomly. End of it. And we just build the context answer, that it's speech with the answer. You can give different text for the speech and for the screen, but I'm giving the same. The source is the Star Wars words, the context out, name of the context, subject, request the character. End of it. Okay? At this point, this only works from Dialogflow. What happens if I want to connect to something else? Very easy. I just go to integrations and I select which tool I want to integrate. I don't know what's going on. Google Assistant, Web Demo, Facebook, Slack, Viber, Twitter, Twilio, a lot of tools. Even Cortana. And we have a lot of SDKs. Because you can, for example, have your own Android application and say, okay, I want my Android application to be the client of Dialogflow. So you just integrate the SDK. The Android SDK could be better. So maybe it's worth access directly the endpoint for Dialogflow. But you have a lot of even Epson of areas, freaky things. Okay. For example, if you try to integrate with Google Assistant, it has some things, and then you can update, and it will bring you to the Google Home console, and you finish setting up these things there. Okay, it's quite easy. About the things that, for example, Google Assistant can send you or receive via JSON, documentation is huge. Okay. In the case of other tools, like for example, if we say Telegram, it says, oh, go here, take a token, put the token, end of it. Okay.
I have a question regarding Google Assistant. So is it like when you finish your app, you publish it and it's available to everyone?
Yes. The Google Assistant the applications are called Google Actions. Then we have Google Assistant and Google Home that both use actions. When you receive a request, the request says if there is a screen and if there is voice. Because one has voice, the other has voice at the screen, the other has, okay? And these actions are available to everybody. In Google Assistant, you don't install applications. You can run anything at any point. If you they have some kind of marketplace. If you go to this marketplace, it won't say install. It will say this to start this application.
So right now on Android Google Assistant, I can say something to get.
No, because it's not published yet in Google Assistant. I don't want Disney to sue me, basically. But if you just go publish it and they accept it, it goes to a review process. After the review process, it's available to all users in this language. Okay, you just specify what word you want to start, and even you can say what voice to use. So the voice of Google Home and the voice of your application are different. Okay, it's also a really cool thing is that you have a Google Home or a Google Assistant. While you are debugging, as you use the same user account, it works in your Google Home.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's cool. Okay. And this is the way to publish it. Depends, for other platforms, check documentation. We can be here for this. Okay, I think there's nothing else. Code review is done. That's my last. I don't have the last. Okay, that's everything I wanted to tell. I urge you to play with it. It's really funny. You have to get the grip of this thing of the context in, context out. I went to a workshop with the Google people, 2 days of workshop only about designing conversations. Developing them is easy. Designing them, oh Jesus Christ. Also, just let me explain. We use it in proper product. We had an application that was for job posting. So the recruiter and the candidate, they were in a chat. And we use it not for conversation, but for suggestion. So every time the recruiter said something, we send this phrase to Dialogflow. And if the Dialogflow detected that the recruiter was trying to make an interview, phrases like, come tomorrow at 9, then we suggest create an interview in the application. Okay? This is another use case for this. What we found is that users and people have so many ways of telling things, of saying things that you don't even expect. So you will need a lot of time training it. And in this case, it was written. It was not talk. People is able to say things in so many wrong ways. You cannot imagine in how many ways I saw the word WhatsApp written, even with G instead of W, even with T at the end. So yes, if people make mistakes, you have to add these mistakes as possible phrases, because people make a lot of mistakes when they write. Okay? As I said, dialogue design, it's a very complex topic, very complex. There are a lot of studies. UX people is getting crazy with this, but before doing anything, design a small conversation and try to make it, okay? I don't know if there's any question, anything you want to know? No? 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 No?